Imagine standing in the middle of the desert, and right in front of you is this massive structure. No machines, no cranes, just stone on top of stone rising toward the sky. It's hot, it's silent, and you're staring at something that's over 4,500 years old.
Oof! Goosebumps! You're talking about the Great Pyramids of Giza, right?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The wonder, the mystery, the how in the world did they build that and kind of moment.
Welcome back, everyone, to the English podcast for listening and speaking, where we travel through time, grammar, and vocabulary, all in one conversation.
I'm Emily, and I am so ready for this topic. Ancient history? Yes. Giant stone triangles in the desert? Double yes.
And I'm Brian, slightly less obsessed with sand, but extremely curious about how the heck they built those things without forklifts or bulldozers.
Today we're talking about the Great Pyramids of Giza, and not just what they are, but how they were built, why they matter, and all the crazy myths people still believe about them.
We're also going to sneak in some super useful English along the way, especially if you love talking about history or mysteries.
Or both. You'll learn how to use the past simple. Like the pyramids were built thousands of years ago.
And we'll play around with some passive voice too, like the stones were moved by hand. That sounds mysterious, right?
Yes. I love passive voice. It always makes things sound like a secret.
So if you're listening to this on YouTube, like, share, and comment. It really helps us reach more learners around the world.
And we want to hear from you. So here's our first question. What's the most amazing building you've ever seen? Maybe it's a castle, a cathedral, a skyscraper, or something in your hometown.
Drop it in the comments, and bonus points if you use the past simple, like I visited the Eiffel Tower in 2019.
This episode is also a vocabulary treasure chest, my friends. You'll pick up words like pharaoh, tomb, limestone, masonry, monument, and more.
And we're not going to teach them like a boring textbook. You'll hear them in real conversation, just like we're doing now.
That's right. We want you to feel these words, to picture them, to be able to use them when you talk about something old, mysterious, or epic.
Like the pyramids. They're not just buildings, they're monuments. They were built as tombs for pharaohs. They were designed to last forever.
Ooh, and they did. That's what gets me. They're still standing thousands of years later. I mean, what else from that time even survived?
Definitely not my attention span, but yes, these pyramids are special. And today, we're going to explore every angle. The facts, the theories, the wild stories, the grammar, the vocab, all of it.
So get ready to travel back in time and into the heart of one of the greatest wonders ever built.
Section 1 complete. Are you ready to go back to ancient Egypt?
Oh, I was born ready. Let's go.
Before we jump into ramps and ropes, let's set the stage. The pyramids were created in an ancient kingdom along the Nile, and everything about them still feels larger than life.
The Great Pyramid stood on the Giza Plateau, while the desert wind blew over the Nile Valley, and priests, scribes, and workers moved around it like a living city.
We're talking about the Old Kingdom, and more specifically the Fourth Dynasty, when powerful rulers centralized wealth and labor to build monuments that refused to disappear.
The most famous ruler here was Pharaoh Kufu, also called Cheops, and his tomb became the Great Pyramid, a monument that still leaves people breathless.
Say that again for the people in the back. The Great Pyramid was built for Khufu around 2560 BCE.
And when we say built, we mean real people did the work. Farmers became laborers during the flood season, artisans carved blocks, and overseers organized teams like a gigantic orchestra.
The purpose was spiritual and political at the same time. The pyramid was a tomb, but it also shouted, "We ruled, we lasted, we mattered."
The Egyptians believed the pharaoh continued after death, so the burial chamber held a sarcophagus, and passages were aligned with stars to guide a royal soul.
Inside the Great Pyramid, explorers later entered rooms now called the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber, names that were given by modern visitors, not ancient workers.
The complex wasn't just a single building. A mortuary temple stood beside the pyramid. Causeways connected buildings, and smaller pyramids were raised for queens and royal family members.
People sometimes imagine enslaved masses, but the evidence suggests something more complex. Skilled crews were organized, fed, housed, and their graffiti was left behind like ancient signatures.
Those names were scratched into hidden places, and the marks said, in effect, "We were here, we built this," and that human detail always gives me chills.
The casing stones were once smooth white limestone, so the surfaces gleamed. The pyramid shone like a beacon under the sun, and caravans probably saw it from far away.
In Past Simple, the story flows easily. The pharaoh commissioned, architects planned, workers quarried, barges carried, masons placed, and the desert watched.
Yes, and notice how the passive fits the mystery. The limestone was cut, the blocks were hauled, the faces were aligned. Those sentences pull the focus toward the monument itself.
Speaking of timeline, the Great Pyramid came first at Giza for Khufu. Then Khafre followed with his pyramid and the Sphinx, and Menkaure finished the trio with a smaller but elegant structure.
So the plateau grew like a stone calendar. One after another, the pyramids were completed, and a city of the dead mirrored the city of the living across the river.
Let's drop a quick "repeat after me" so the Past Simple gets into your mouth. Repeat after me. The pyramids were built more than 4,000 years ago.
One more. Repeat after me. Khufu ruled during the 4th dynasty, and his tomb became the Great Pyramid.
And a passive you can keep. Repeat after me. The burial chamber was hidden deep inside.
Nice. Now vocabulary check in context. Pharaoh, tomb, dynasty, ancient, chamber. These words aren't decorations. They're the bones of the story.
The word pharaoh wasn't just a title. It carried divine expectation. So the tomb was not a box of stone, but a bridge to eternity.
Dynasty tells you power passed through blood. The ancient families ruled for centuries, and each reign left traces in temples, stelae, and the layout of sacred spaces.
And chamber paints a small but heavy picture. The air felt cooler, the walls pressed in, and torchlight slid over red granite while silence did the talking.
Let's address a common question. Were mummies found inside the Great Pyramid? Strangely, no. The central sarcophagus stood empty when it was formally recorded in modern times.
But other pyramids preserved remains, and tombs across the desert, like in the Valley of the Kings centuries later, kept royal bodies and grave goods that whispered of another life.
The Giza project also included boat pits. Full-sized wooden boats were buried for the pharaoh to sail the sky with the sun god. How cool is that?
All of this tells us something about meaning. The pyramids weren't random piles. They were monuments of faith, power, and memory.
And they anchored a calendar of festivals. Priests performed rituals, offerings were brought, and the dead king's name was spoken, so it would live.
One more Past Simple moment before we invite comments. The base was measured, the corners were set, the orientation was checked against the sky, and then the first course was laid.
And year after year, the work continued. Workers returned after the Nile flooded, stones arrived, ramps rose, and the silhouette grew until the summit touched the sun.
Quick goosebump line. The Great Pyramid stood as the tallest human-made structure for almost 4,000 years.
Which is wild because cathedrals came and went, towers rose and fell, and yet this ancient triangle kept looking over Cairo like a quiet king.
Okay, listeners, your turn. What historical place moved you the most, and why and when did you visit it?
And try a past simple sentence in your answer. I visited, I learned, I felt. Let your memory carry the grammar.
Also tell us this. If you could walk into one chamber tonight, which would you choose? The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, or a secret room still waiting?
If you're on YouTube, like this episode, share it with a history-loving friend and drop your sentences below. Your practice helps other learners too.
Here's a final line to carry with you. The pyramids were not only built, they were believed in.
And that belief has lasted longer than any dynasty, longer than any empire, and somehow it is still alive when we say their names out loud. Before we get lost in legends, let's talk nuts and bolts. How on earth those pyramids were actually built. And if you're listening on YouTube, remember to like, share, and comment, because your support helps more learners join this adventure.
I'm excited for this because the process feels like a mystery movie. The stones were cut, the blocks were moved, the faces were aligned, and somehow a perfect triangle rose out of sand. How did that even happen?
First, picture a work site the size of a city. The ground was leveled, survey lines were marked, and the corners were set with star-level precision before a single block was placed.
And those blocks weren't tiny. The average stone weighed as much as a small truck, and yet millions were set into place without modern machines. That fact always blows my mind.
Let's bring in vocabulary as we go, because the words carry the work. The soft outer layer was limestone. The stone was taken from a quarry, and teams of laborers carried and dragged the pieces toward the rising monument.
I love the word masonry because it feels like hands and craft. The faces were smoothed, the joints were fitted, and a skin of white stone once gleamed over the desert like a mirror.
The standard picture goes something like this. The blocks were cut in nearby quarries with copper tools and dolerite pounding stones. Sledges were loaded, and wet sand was used, so the runners slid instead of sinking.
So the sand was watered, the sledges were pulled, the rhythm was counted, and a human river moved stone after stone. That image feels epic.
Once the blocks reached the plateau, the ramps were raised. Some scholars think a straight ramp was built and lengthened. Others think zigzag ramps hugged the sides. And another theory says an internal spiral ramp was hidden inside the pyramid's mass.
No matter which shape you prefer, the point is the same. As the pyramid grew, the ramps were extended, the angle was managed, and gravity was fought with patience.
When you hear sentences like, "the stones were dragged," or "the casing was polished," you're hearing the passive voice in action. It's perfect when the doer isn't the star, and the thing itself deserves the spotlight. The pyramid is the star here.
So passive voice feels right because the process is bigger than one person. The block was cut, the block was moved, the block was set, and the pyramid was born out of repetition.
Here's a quick comparison that keeps it friendly. Active voice sounds like workers moved the blocks, but passive sounds like though the blocks were moved by workers. Moved. And in this story, the block is the main character, so the passive fits.
Okay, Teacher Brian, give our listeners a practice line so they can feel it in their mouths.
Repeat after me. The stones were cut in quarries, the blocks were hauled up ramps, the courses were laid carefully, and the casing was polished to shine.
That felt good. Say it again if you need to, and imagine the sound of tools tapping, ropes creaking, and foremen calling time.
Another detail makes the craft even more impressive. The base was squared so tightly that the sides differ by only a few centimeters, and the whole structure was oriented almost perfectly to the cardinal directions.
So the site was measured, the lines were checked at sunrise and sunset, and the first rows were locked like a stone zipper. Precision wasn't an accident. It was a value.
The outer limestone came from Tura across the river, so the blocks were ferried by boat when the Nile was high. And up on the plateau, the masonry was tuned like music, so joints almost disappeared.
Inside, the king's chamber was lined with granite that came from far to the south. Those blocks were shipped from Aswan, lifted into place, and they still sit there like red thunder.
Roof beams for that chamber were stacked in layers so the weight was distributed. In other words, the load was redirected, the pressure was eased, and the chamber was protected by clever engineering.
Meanwhile, an entire city supported the work. Bread was baked, beer was brewed, tools were sharpened, and the laborers were housed in barracks that archaeologists later uncovered.
Their bones were studied, their diet was reconstructed, and their names were found in work gang graffiti. Teams called themselves things like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure. Ancient team spirit is weirdly relatable.
People sometimes say slaves built the pyramids, but the evidence suggests trained crews were organized and paid. Dignity was given, and craft was celebrated in marks left behind.
Let's toss in a few more passive snapshots so the structure sticks. The ground was leveled, the alignment was checked, the ramps were shaped, the sledges were pulled, the faces were dressed, the summit was capped.
I want to stand on the plateau and whisper that sentence to the wind. The summit was capped, and a whole civilization exhaled.
Another theory worth mentioning says water was used as a leveling tool. Shallow channels were filled, the surface was marked at the waterline, and the floor was shaved until it was true.
That's elegant. The desert was measured with water, the chalk was scratched, and the plain was created by patience. Human ingenuity never fails to surprise me.
The geometry was checked again and again. Plumb lines were held, sighting rods were aimed, and cords were stretched tight so each course stayed honest.
And the word masonry returns, because the craft wasn't just heavy, it was delicate. The faces were finished, the joints were tested with a copper blade, and the corners were kissed together.
When the casing was still in place, sunlight turned the pyramid into a lighthouse. Travelers said the horizon was bright, and the monument was seen from miles away, a stone star in daylight.
Over centuries, earthquakes shook, stones were reused, and the smooth skin was stripped. But the core remained, and the triangle still lifts the sky.
Quick audience challenge, because practice makes memory. Repeat after me. The ramp was extended as the height increased. The sledge was guided by ropes, and the final stone was set with care.
Your turn in the comments. Write one passive sentence about construction using today's words. Try limestone, quarry, ramp, laborers, or masonry, and let the pyramid be the star of your sentence.
And give us your take on the ramps. Do you think a long straight ramp was used, or a zigzag ramp, or a hidden internal ramp? Which theory feels right to you, and why?
If you've ever pushed a sofa up a staircase, you know why ramps matter. Energy was saved, friction was managed, and momentum was everything. Teamwork was the real engine.
Let's tuck in one micro lesson for clarity. Passive voice doesn't mean boring, it means focus. And here the focus is the material. So the thing is named first, and the action wraps around it like work gloves.
So when you want the object to glow, let the passive carry it. The block was placed, the angle was measured, the face was polished, and suddenly the stone is alive.
Before we close, a fast recap that doubles as practice. The limestone was quarried, the laborers were organized, the ramp was raised, the masonry was perfected, and a world-class monument was created.
And here's your second audience question to keep the comments buzzing. If you could shadow one worker for a day, a quarry cutter, a ramp builder, or a master mason, who would you choose, and what would you want to see?
Don't forget the love, like, share, and comment, because every click tells the algorithm that learners care about history and language, and more people will find this episode.
Final heartbeat line for this section: this wasn't magic, this was masonry, and the desert remembers every blow of the hammer.
And next we'll open the door to stories that refuse to die, curses, hidden chambers, and the great maybe of the alien myth. Brace yourself for the fun part, because theories were born as soon as shadows were cast.
All right, Brian, it's time to step into the sandstorm where facts meet feelings. Myths, legends, and mysteries swirling around the Great Pyramids like heat over the desert.
I'm ready, but I'm also bringing my skeptical sunscreen because a lot of wild stories were told, a lot of theories were suggested, and not all of them aged well.
See, I love that. The second someone says, "We don't know," my imagination puts on a golden headdress and shouts, "What if a secret chamber was hidden right above us?"
And my inner engineer replies, or, a void was detected by modern scans, and it could be construction space, which is less romantic but probably closer to reality.
Fine. Keep me on Earth. But admit it. The pyramids have always felt mysterious, like they were built by hands and minds that understood the sky in a way we forgot.
I'll admit this much. Precision like that doesn't happen by accident, but it also doesn't require aliens. Skilled masonry was used, measurements were refined, and patient adjustments were made.
We're getting to aliens already? I was going to build the suspense, you myth ruiner.
I'm saving time. The alien theory was popularized in the 20th century, books were sold, TV specials were aired, and the idea was entertained more than it deserved.
But you have to admit the vibe is cinematic. A giant triangle rises from the sand, the stars line up, and whispers say the plans were delivered by visitors. Goosebumps.
Goosebumps are not evidence. The stones were quarried, the courses were laid, the angles were checked, and a human solution was achieved by human hands.
I know. Still, can we play for a second? If an alien ship landed and offered math lessons, the homework would be epic.
I'll play, but then we land the ship. The myth makes great movie posters, but the theory collapses when you look at tools, quarries, worker villages, and graffiti that literally named work crews.
Speaking of stories, let's talk curses, because the Pharaoh's curse was whispered every time a tomb was opened and something weird happened. The curse was said to strike anyone who disturbed a king.
Most of those stories came from later periods or from the Valley of the Kings, not Giza itself. Besides, mold spores were inhaled, accidents happened, and drama was printed.
Still, the atmosphere inside a chamber feels like a legend. The air was still, the light was swallowed, and a sense of crossing a line was felt by every visitor.
That I buy. Closed spaces keep secrets, and when a sealed room was opened after millennia, a smell like old stone and resin was released. Memory was in the air.
Let's do a quick language moment before we chase more ghosts. Repeat after me. Many theories were suggested, but only some were supported by evidence.
And one more for the skeptics and the dreamers alike. Repeat after me. A curse was said to exist, but natural causes were often found.
Now pull me into reality. Modern technology scanned the pyramid, and a hidden space was reported, right?
Yes, particle scans were used, muons were measured, and a large void was detected near the Grand Gallery. It doesn't prove treasure, but engineering features were revealed.
I love that sentence. A large void was detected. It sounds like a door in the dark that hasn't been opened yet.
Or a construction cavity that reduced weight. Either way, it shows that careful science was applied and that new clues were gathered without breaking stones.
Here's a legend I secretly adore. The idea that the pyramids were aligned with Orion's belt, and the Nile mirrored the Milky Way. Stars were believed to guide kings.
The alignment idea was proposed, debated, and adjusted 1,000 times. Some correlations were noted, others were stretched, and solid measurements were preferred over poetic symmetry.
You're no fun, but you are useful. Yes, correlation isn't proof, but I still think the architects watched the sky, learned its rhythm, and painted it in stone.
That I agree with. The cardinal directions were targeted, the shadow lines were studied, and sunrise and sunset were used like clock hands. Ancient astronomy was practiced.
Another mystery that haunts me is the missing mummies. In the Great Pyramid, a sarcophagus was found, but no royal body was recovered. Where did Khufu go?
Bodies were looted, tombs were robbed, and remains were lost in many places. That doesn't mean a portal was opened. It means people were people even in the Bronze Age.
Still, the absence deepens the story. An empty stone box was left, a name was carved into memory, and the king became a question that never ends.
And questions are good. They keep us honest and curious at the same time. A healthy doubt was preserved, and learning continued.
Audience time. Do you believe in the alien theory? Yes or no, and why? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us what evidence would change your mind.
And a second prompt. Which mystery pulls you the most? The curse, the hidden chambers, the star alignments, or the missing mummy? And what theory do you favor?
If you're on YouTube, like, share, and comment, because your voice helps this community grow, and your curiosity teaches other learners how to argue kindly.
Let's add one more language beat with past simple plus passive so the structure sinks in. Repeat after me. Many stories were told, some proofs were found, and new questions were asked.
And try a creative one at home. Repeat after me. A secret passage was dreamed by poets, but a practical stairway was used by builders.
Speaking of stairways, the air shafts were once called ventilation, then star tunnels. Their angles were measured, their targets were proposed, and whole books were written.
That's the thing about a great monument. It becomes a mirror. Our fears and hopes are projected onto it, and new meanings are invented every century.
And yet precision remains. Measurements were repeated, margins were compared, and the footprint of human craft refused to vanish under layers of myth.
Maybe that's why the pyramids feel eternal. The facts are solid, the myths are glitter, and together they make a story we can't stop telling.
Here's my skeptical love letter. The pyramids didn't need aliens. They needed time, talent, and teams, and those were supplied in extraordinary measure.
And here's my believer's confession. The desert still feels magic, and if a secret door clicks open one night, I want to be holding the flashlight.
Deal? You take the flashlight, I'll bring the notebook, and between us both the romance and the data will be recorded.
Final thought for this section. Legends were born because wonder was felt, and that wonder still teaches us how to ask better questions.
And our class bell is curiosity. Keep ringing it, keep reading, keep measuring, and keep imagining, because a mystery is a classroom with the lights half dimmed.
Next up, we ask what these stones did to the world. Art, identity, tourism, pride. The cultural impact was massive, and it's still unfolding today.
Don't leave without the homework. Like, share, and comment. And write one passive sentence about a pyramid mystery so your English practice is carved into stone.
See you in the next section, explorers. Theories were tested, myths were loved, and your questions are welcome, always.
Before we argue about souvenirs and selfies, let's say this out loud together so the tone is clear. The pyramids are not just stones, they are a symbol.
A symbol of what, though? Power, faith, patience, imagination, national pride, all of the above. And I feel that wave every time I picture dawn washing over those faces.
Same. And if you're listening on YouTube, like, share, and comment, because conversations like this help learners everywhere, and your voice is part of this growing community.
Let's talk impact. When travelers reached Giza, notebooks were open, sketches were drawn, and a certain kind of awe was taught to the world. The shape of wonder was standardized.
Artists copied those angles, poets borrowed the silhouette, and architects stole the drama. Museum halls were filled, and the idea of the ancient monument was exported to living rooms and school books.
I love that phrase, ancient monument, because it sounds heavy and alive at the same time. The word monument means memory turned into matter, a story you can touch.
And the story kept moving. When photography arrived, postcards were printed, albums were passed around, and suddenly the pyramid was a global celebrity, with better cheekbones than any of us.
Tourists came in waves, guides told stories, camels posed like professional models, and Cairo's hotels wrote their own history beside the older one. Tourism was shaped by a triangle.
But impact isn't just travel. Identity was influence too. For many Egyptians, the plateau isn't a postcard, it's home, it's heritage. It's the reminder that skill and science and spirit once worked as one.
Heritage matters because it says, we belong to something that lasts. When kids point at the skyline and their grandparents smile, a family becomes a timeline instead of a snapshot.
Which is why preservation matters. Stones were repaired, paths were managed, and the modern city was asked to live with an ancient neighbor respectfully.
Preservation is tricky, though. If you protect too tightly, the site becomes a museum with a fence. But if you open too widely, the wear and tear grows fast.
So policies were debated, visitor numbers were monitored, and new tech was tested so the monument could breathe. That's a living tension. Access versus care.
And the internet doubled the echo. Videos were posted. drone shots were shared, and classrooms far away felt like they stood in the sand. A global classroom was created.
Here's a sentence to feel in your mouth. Repeat after me. The pyramids were celebrated as a wonder, and their image was carried around the world.
One more. Repeat after me. A national heritage was shared, a global audience was inspired, and a new generation was invited to learn.
Now let's poke the hard question. Tourism brings jobs, but it also brings pressure. How do you measure value without measuring damage?
You listen to local voices, guides, guards, shopkeepers, conservators, everyone who lives with the monument daily. The community is part of the heritage.
Exactly. Heritage isn't glassed in, it breathes, and the best preservation listens before it labels.
And beyond economics, think about art. Fashion designers borrowed the geometry, filmmakers staged miracles under that sky, and gamers built entire worlds with golden sand and blue horizons.
Classroom posters did work too. The first time a kid sees that shape in a textbook and says, "What is that?" a door opens. Curiosity becomes a passport.
Do you remember your first pyramid image?
A library encyclopedia. The page was torn, the picture was grainy, and I was hooked because the caption said, "The tallest structure on Earth stood in the desert for almost 4,000 years."
Mine was a movie scene. A caravan crossed the frame, and I thought, what kind of human dares to stack stars?
And here's the language part we promised. The past simple shows legacy smoothly. Painters visited, writers described, travelers returned, and museums displayed.
The passive works, too. Icons were created, meanings were argued, replicas were built, and identities were shaped. The monument doesn't move, but the world moves around it.
Let's talk symbols. For some, the pyramid equals genius. For others, it equals empire. For many, it equals a story that refuses to fade. Symbols are multiple, that's their power.
And symbols can heal. When a monument survives, people feel steadier, like the ground remembers them and says, keep going, you're part of a longer line.
Audience moment. What does the pyramid symbolize for you? Genius, faith, power, patience, or something else? Drop it in the comments and tell us why.
Second question. Should ancient monuments always be preserved, even when money is tight? If yes, why? If no, what gets priority? We want to hear your reasoning.
And if you answer, try building one past simple sentence and one passive sentence. I visited a heritage site last year, and a local tradition was preserved by the community.
Speaking of the word heritage, feel how warm it is. It doesn't point backward only, it points forward. It says, we inherit and we care for what we inherit.
Care shows up in small ways. Trash was collected, paths were rerouted, signs were rewritten, so stories felt true and welcoming. Details are love made visible.
And love does not exclude science. Laser scans were run, aerial images were taken, and micro vibrations were studied, so the stones could rest without surprises.
Yet the best data still bows to the feeling when you arrive. A hush happens, shade gathers under the edges, and the city noise thins out. Wonder overwrites Wi-Fi.
You can't bottle that, but you can teach it. Teachers ask students to close their eyes and imagine wind, dust, and an angled wall taller than fear. Suddenly, a classroom is a caravan.
Which is why the pyramid keeps shaping new artists. Rhythms are written, canvases are cut into triangles, and fashion lines echo the desert palette. Legacy is not a museum label, it's a current.
I want to drop a line people can share. Heritage isn't just what we save, it's what saves us.
And here's my partner line. Preservation isn't freeze-drying the past, it's feeding a story so it can keep growing.
Let's offer a mini practice so the grammar sticks. Repeat after me. The monument was protected, the history was taught, and the wonder was felt.
And one past, simple for the road. Repeat after me. Artists visited, children learned, and travelers carried the story home.
We also have to mention respect. Photo shoots were staged, dances were filmed, and sometimes the space was treated like a prop. Lines were crossed and corrections were needed.
Good etiquette is part of preservation. Feet were kept off fragile blocks, drones were licensed, and local rules were followed. Respect is not a buzzword, it's a practice.
I keep thinking about identity. When a child in Cairo draws a triangle without thinking, it means the skyline lives inside them. Home was sketched before words arrived.
And when a visitor whispers, "Wow," it means the triangle lives inside them too. Strangers were turned into caretakers for a minute.
So the legacy is bigger than measurements. It's the smile of a guard at sunset, the rhythm of hooves in the sand, the way the light slides down the last stones of the day.
Which is why we keep telling this story on a language podcast. Because words carry care, and care keeps monuments alive.
Last audience nudge for this section. Write a one-sentence tribute in the comments using monument, symbol, or heritage, and then respond to someone else with encouragement. Community is also a monument.
And yes, like, share, and comment so more learners can find this episode and build their English around real wonder.
Final heartbeat line. The pyramids are a symbol, but they're also a promise. If we build with patience and care, our work can outlive our names.
And that, my friend, is a legacy worth preserving.
Okay, explorers, welcome to our grammar workshop, where dusty rules turn into living language you can actually use.
We've been traveling through history all episodes, so today's grammar is the perfect match. Past simple and passive voice. In real conversation, no stiff formulas, just feel and flow.
I'll be the curious learner and you'll be the friendly teacher, but make it fun. I want examples that smell like limestone and sound like hammers.
Deal. Think about a workday at Giza. Yesterday it happened, so past simple tells the story straight. People worked, tools scraped, sun burned, and progress happened.
So past simple is the movie of what people did, right? Workers pulled, scribes recorded, cooks baked, and at sunset the ramp looked a little higher.
Exactly. Now watch how passive voice flips the spotlight from people to the thing itself, which is perfect for monuments. The stone was cut, the block was moved, the chamber was sealed.
Ooh, that does feel cinematic. In passive, the pyramid becomes the main character and the people become the quiet heartbeat behind it.
Let's make it physical. Active voice says laborers hauled the sledges, but passive says the sledges were hauled. And suddenly the motion is front and center.
Give me a before and after. I'll say it actively and you transform it into passive so our listeners hear the switch.
Go for it.
Workers cut limestone in the quarry.
Limestone was cut in the quarry.
Crews lifted granite into the king's chamber.
Granite was lifted into the king's chamber.
Builders polished the casing stones.
The casing stones were polished.
That hits like a drum. The object glows and the action wraps around it. A monument was born from verbs.
Let's run a quick repeat after me so the rhythm lands. Repeat after me. The stones were cut, the blocks were hauled, the courses were laid, and the summit was capped.
Again, but slower. Repeat after me. The tomb was designed, the passages were measured, and the chamber was sealed.
Beautiful. Now a past simple warm-up to balance it. Repeat after me. Workers ate, teams sang, foremen counted, and the ramp grew.
So past simple gives me people in motion, passive gives me focus and mood. Both matter, both are powerful.
Exactly. Use past simple when you want human fingerprints. Use passive when the thing deserves the spotlight, like a monument, a process, or a result.
Can we talk storytelling? When I want mystery, I choose passive. A secret void was detected, and my brain goes, what's inside?
Right, and when you want credit or blame, you switch back. Archaeologists scanned, conservators repaired, guides explained, and the people step forward.
Let's fold in vocabulary so our learners carry both grammar and words. Give me a mini tour with masonry, quarry, laborers, chamber, and monument.
Active first. Laborers quarried limestone, masons dressed the faces, and a monument rose. Passive now. Limestone was quarried, the faces were dressed by masonry, and a monument was raised.
That's delicious. I can hear copper on stone and feel dust in my throat. Language paints the air.
Quick sense check for tense. Past simple, likes clear time anchors. Yesterday, last season, in 2560 BCE. So we say Khufu ruled, crews worked, the pyramids stood.
And passive loves, stages, and results. The base was squared, the ramp was extended, the summit was finished, which sounds like a checklist carved in granite.
Let's practice with the audience. Repeat after me. The quarry was opened at dawn, the sledge was loaded at noon, and the block was set at sunset.
Your turn to comment below. Write one past simple sentence about the pyramids and one passive sentence about construction. Model it after what you just heard and make it specific.
While they type, let's play upgrade. I'll give you a flat sentence, and you make it stronger with detail and vibe.
Hit me.
Workers built the pyramid.
I strongly believe workers built the pyramid through patience and skill. They cut limestone, dragged sledges, and sang while the desert listened.
Now passive version.
The pyramid was built through patience and skill. Limestone was cut, sledges were dragged, and songs were carried on the wind.
Chef's kiss. Same truth. Two moods. One feels human, one feels monumental.
Give me a past simple story beat, like a mini scene from the worker village.
Bread baked, beer cooled, tools gleamed, and a foreman counted beats as ropes tightened.
And the passive mirror.
Bread was baked, beer was cooled, tools were polished, and ropes were tightened.
That's hypnotic. Passive stacks results like stones.
Exactly. It's great for process descriptions, museum audio guides, and science explanations. The actions were done, the result was achieved.
Audience check-in. Which style do you prefer for this topic, active or passive, and why? Tell us in the comments and try to use at least one of today's vocabulary words.
Time for tiny troubleshooting. Learners sometimes overuse passive because it sounds grand, but balance is king. If your story needs people, let people breathe.
And if your story needs mystery or weight, let the object shine. Say, the chamber was sealed, and the door closes gently in the mind.
One more practice chain with both voices, so switching feels natural. I'll do active, you echo passive.
Ready.
Masons aligned the faces.
The faces were aligned.
Laborers raised the ramp.
The ramp was raised.
Priests blessed the tomb.
The tomb was blessed.
Visitors whispered at sunrise.
Whispers were heard at sunrise.
Last little memory hook. Past simple is your camera for moments. Passive is your spotlight for results. Camera for people, spotlight for things.
And both make emotion stronger. In past simple, I feel sweat and song. In passive, I feel hush and height. Both are music, just different tempos.
Let's finish with a call to action, so the grammar gets carved into memory. Repeat after me. The pyramids were built in an ancient age, and their story was carried to us.
And one. Past simple to keep your heart in it. Repeat after me. People worked, hope rose, and a monument changed the horizon.
If you're on YouTube, like, share, and comment, because your practice helps other learners, and your examples might be read in the next episode.
Final sparkle line for this workshop: your English is a pyramid. Bricks were laid, habits were formed, and your voice was built day by day.
I love that. Next, we climb to the final ridge, the viral moment and closing, where wonder gets a microphone and history turns into a promise.
I want to end where the heart begins, right there in the heat and hush of Giza, where a horizon was changed and a promise was kept.
And I want to end where language lifts, the place where a single sentence can feel like a staircase.
Then climb with me, Brian, because this is the line I've been holding in my chest all episode. The pyramids are proof that humans can build wonders that last forever.
Say it one more time so it lands like a stone on the summit. The pyramids are proof that humans can build wonders that last forever.
That's the feeling I want our listeners to carry. Not just history, not just facts, but a spark that says we can make something that outlives us.
And here's the language mirror I promised. Pass the torch and I'll flip the spotlight. They were built to last and they still inspire us today.
That passive phrasing gives me chills because the focus is the monument itself. The they stands like a silhouette against the sun.
Exactly. The agents fade, the work remains, and the sentence becomes a little pyramid. Quiet, balanced, and strong.
Okay, let's make this viral by making it sing. Repeat after me. They were built to last.
Repeat after me. The story was carried for thousands of years.
Now the active for contrast. Repeat after me. People dreamed, people planned, people built.
And the echo that seals it. Repeat after me. A wonder was born.
Listeners, if you're on YouTube, like, share, and comment, and tag a friend who needs a shot of courage today.
Because here's the secret under the sand. Courage was laid like bricks, one habit at a time, one day at a time.
I want to give our community a pocket quote they can write on a Post-it or set as a phone lock screen. Your English is your own pyramid, built word by word, day by day.
And my companion line? Mistakes were made, lessons were learned, and fluency was built anyway.
Let's take 60 seconds to braid language and feeling so the grammar sticks without sounding like homework.
Past simple first, the movie Reel of Action. Workers sang, scribes tallied, rope creaked, and a shadow grew.
Passive next, the slow camera on stone. The base was squared, the faces were dressed, the chamber was sealed.
Combine them and the pulse appears. People moved, a monument was raised.
That's the rhythm you can use in any story about effort and results.
And it's the rhythm of learning too. You practiced, you repeated, and progress was made. Small steps, big shadow.
Brian, give me the cleanest two-sentence takeaway you can make, like a teacher who moonlights as a poet.
Past simple tells who did what. Passive voice shows what was achieved. Together, they build meaning that lasts.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Only if it comes in limestone white.
Deal. Now, 2 audience prompts before we seal the door on this episode. What's one line from today that you'll share with a friend, and why did it move you?
And give us one of each in the comments. A past simple sentence and a passive sentence about the pyramids or your own life. I practiced English tonight. And a new habit was started.
If this episode helped you, please like, share, and comment, because your clicks tell the algorithm that learners matter, and more people will find this space.
And if you're listening on another platform, rate the show and drop a short review. Kindness was felt, and it keeps the lights on.
Can we do one last walk through the desert with words? I want a minute of pure atmosphere.
Close your eyes, friends. Footsteps softened the sand. A line of figures approached, and morning light warmed the eastern face.
A foreman raised his hand, a chant began, and the sledge moved, slow, certain, inevitable.
At noon, the tools flashed. Chalk dust floated, and a new course locked into place.
By dusk, the desert cooled, swallows circled, and a copper edge whispered across a joint until the seam disappeared.
And somewhere a scribe finished a tally, folded a note, and the day was done. Another layer was added to forever.
That's the feeling I want for our listeners when they study, a quiet promise that today's page is a stone in a wall that will stand.
So let's craft the final shareable moment together. First the Emily spark, then the Brian frame.
The pyramids are proof that humans can build wonders that last forever.
They were built to last, and they still inspire us today.
Say both out loud and feel how they fit. The first lights the fire, the second sets the stone.
And now a 3-beat mantra to keep. Repeat after me. I show up, I practice, and progress is built.
Repeat after me. My words matter, my voice grows, and courage lasts.
Repeat after me. A habit was started, a skill was built, a future was shaped.
If you post any of those lines, tag us so we can cheer. Community was built one comment at a time.
Quick gratitude roll. Thank you for listening, for repeating out loud, for writing brave sentences in the comments. Your effort turns a podcast into a workshop.
And your imagination turns a lesson into a journey. We traveled to Giza together, and somehow the sand is still in my shoes.
Speaking of journeys, don't leave without your souvenirs. New vocabulary like masonry, tomb, pharaoh, limestone, quarry, laborers, chamber, monument, ancient, mysterious.
And new grammar pathways that you can follow anywhere. Past simple for action, passive for achievement.
Before we say goodbye, a last two-sentence story you can steal for motivation. I studied tonight. A foundation was laid.
Or this one, I spoke even with fear, a voice was built.
That's the whole show in miniature. Effort was made, meaning was built.
Final CTA, friends, like, share, and comment if this episode sparked awe. And tell us what wonder you want to visit next with your English.
And subscribe so your feed becomes a map. New places were explored, and your vocabulary was expanded.
I'm Emily, still imagining moonlight on limestone and feeling very, very small in the best possible way.
I'm Brian, still hearing Rope Creek and chisels sing, and remembering that language is also a tool you can hold.
Our closing line together, for anyone who needs courage: your English is your own pyramid, built brick by brick, word by word.
And with that, this episode is complete. The story was told, the wonder was shared, and your next step is waiting.